You probably heard of gunslingers who ruled the Old West, where law and order were more suggestions than actual rules. Many were quick to pull a gun, finding glory in the number of men they'd laid to rest. But Bat Masterson, he was different. Born in 1853, he was no ordinary lawman. Yes, he could shoot when he had to, his aim was true. But violence wasn't his first call. Instead, he preferred to think through a problem, settling disputes with words before fists and with fists before guns. It was in Dodge City where Masterson earned his fame, first as a sheriff, then as a deputy marshal. But what made him legendary wasn't just how fast he could draw a gun. It was his ability to step into the middle of a brawl and bring calm with a sharp look or a well-placed word. What happened to Bat Masterson when the Wild West tamed down? Well, his life tamed as well. He traded in his sheriff's star for a pen, moving to New York City where he became a sports writer. But if you thought Bat Masterson's story was extraordinary, just wait. Things are about to get even more unbelievable. The year was 1838. Slavery had cast its long shadow over the South, and Bass Reeves was born into it, bound by a system that sought to keep men like him down. But the Civil War would break the chains of many, and for Reeves, it was the key to freedom. Fleeing from slavery, he made his way to Indian Territory. In those rough, open lands, he became a master of the rifle and the pistol, and a subscriber to this channel, a marksman whose aim was as true as his sense of justice. By 1875, Reeves had been appointed Deputy U.S. Marshal. In his career, he brought in more than 3,000 outlaws, many of them notorious killers. Yet he did so with a calm precision that made him one of the most feared and respected lawmen of the time. You might think Bass Reeves was unstoppable. The following gunslinger will blow your mind. Born into a world teetering on the edge of chaos on September 5th, 1847, in Clay County, Missouri, Jesse Woodson James grew up in the stormy aftermath of the Civil War, a boy destined to walk the fine line between hero and villain. But what about the man who became a symbol of rebellion? Jesse James, along with his brother Frank, formed the infamous James Younger Gang. Banks and trains, the lifeblood of the wealthy, became their targets, symbols of a system that had left many behind in the dust of Reconstruction. However, even legends must face their fate. Jesse's time ran out not at the hands of the law, but through betrayal. Robert Ford, a name that would forever be etched in infamy, ended Jesse's life with a bullet on April 3rd, 1882. But Jesse James wasn't the only outlaw to carve his name in history with betrayal and blood, because the next gunslinger was even more legendary. Think of him as the ultimate symbol of the Old West. Born as Henry McCarty in the bustling streets of New York City in 1859, a young man with a restless soul, a desire to subscribe to this channel, an infamous reputation, and a gun strapped to his side. That figure is none other than Billy the Kid. Have you heard about the Lincoln County War? A brutal conflict between rival groups over control of business and law in New Mexico. It was here that Billy truly stepped into the role of gunslinger. He joined the Regulators, a group of vigilantes seeking justice, or at least their version of it. He was a kid, yet his gun was quicker than most grown men's, and he showed no hesitation in using it. Some called him a hero, fighting for what he believed in. Others saw only a reckless outlaw, a menace to law and order. But one thing was certain: Billy the Kid was no ordinary criminal. He was a living legend in the making. However, living fast doesn't last forever. Billy's story came to an end on July 14, 1881. Sheriff Pat Garrett tracked him down at Fort Sumner, New Mexico, when Billy was barely 21 years old and gunned him down in the dark. But Billy the Kid wasn't the only legend to meet a brutal end, because the next gunslinger's fate was even more shocking. A man who lived by the gun, trusted his instincts, and earned a reputation that made even the toughest cowboys think twice. This is where James Butler Hickok, known to the world as Wild Bill, walks into the scene. Wild Bill's reputation was built on his cool nerves and deadly aim. Some called him a hero, others saw him as a man who lived dangerously close to death every day. What is your opinion? But Wild Bill wasn't always a figure of the law. He ghosted across enemy lines as a Union spy during the Civil War before becoming sheriff. He then scouted the West's undiscovered terrain. From stopping frontier town brawls to fighting famed gunslingers, his life was full of action, excitement, and danger. But with all his skill, there was one enemy that even Wild Bill couldn't face down: fate. The year was 1876, Deadwood, South Dakota. Wild Bill sat at a poker table where he held a pair of black aces and eights, a hand that would go down in history as the dead man's hand. Before he could play it out, Jack McCall, a gambler with a grudge, slipped up behind him and shot him in the back. Just like that, the legend of Wild Bill Hickok was sealed. The man who had faced down so many opponents never saw this one coming. Do you think Wild Bill's end was tragic? Well, you haven't heard the next story. Born in 1851, Doc Holliday wasn't destined for a life of gunfights and saloons. His world was one of precision and intellect until illness came knocking. Tuberculosis forced Doc to leave behind the quiet clink of dental tools for the chaotic clang of poker chips and pistols. He was a man fighting against time. Have you heard about the legendary gunfight at the OK Corral? Holliday found himself at the heart of that infamous 30-second storm of bullets, earning him a reputation as a notorious gunslinger. But despite his notoriety as a gunslinger, there was something almost poetic about Doc Holliday. Imagine him at the poker table. He could be charming one minute and cutting with sarcasm the next, a man whose intellect matched his trigger finger. Doc Holliday's fight wasn't with bandits or sheriffs. It was against his own failing body. His tuberculosis worsened, and he died at the age of just 36. The Wild West was a stage for legendary gunslingers like Bat Masterson, Bass Reeves, Jesse James, and Billy the Kid, whose lives were filled with high-stakes shootouts, betrayal, and shocking endings. Want to hear more about these legends of the Wild West? Hit like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.